Welcome to this week's episode of the Compliance Digest, presenting topics on all things compliance related. My name's Alex Krenke, and with me this week returning is Jennifer Greene. Jenny, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Glad to have you back. This week we'll be talking on two FINRA topics that have just come out. The first one will be a quick wrap-up on Sandy and its impact on the East Coast, specifically on FINRA's home offices. And then moving on, we'll be discussing FINRA's stepping up to arbitrate investment advisors. So basically they'll be offering their help to investment advisors when it comes to arbitration. So two interesting updates. Without further delay, let's just get started and talk about Sandy. Basically what FINRA has done to make the disaster and the follow-up a little bit easier on broker-dealers. What can we expect for these guys in the coming months?
FINRA's office is in New York, just like many broker-dealers that were hit out on the East Coast regarding Sandy, and they have really extended their support out to that broker-dealer world, being proactive, asking them if they need extensions or timelines to actually reach out to them and let them know of your situation, and they'll work with you to make the effort possible to keep it going. Other things that they have suggested is if you cannot get into your broker-dealer, to actually go to another broker-dealer and set up a temporary office there, and then also extending those deadlines on the continuing education requirements or any regulatory requirements for continuing education that you might need for those people affected in the disaster. So not the full United States, just those people in the affected disaster areas. Mm-hmm.
And then I thought it was nice that they threw out this safety net, basically, that it's a catch-all. You know, if you have any questions or if you don't think that deadline that's coming up is realistic, just reach out and then request more time, because they'll be accommodating. What we're hearing from a lot of broker-dealers who are out in the lower part of New York City and Manhattan is that they're still kind of trying to get things together, still trying to get their offices and their business, their day-to-day activities back to running like they used to be. And I think we can expect that recovery will be swift, but it's not going to be the quick turnaround that we were all kind of expecting as far as business continuity planning.
Of course, and I think what it does is it shows that support back to the broker-dealers that are out there, and they really understand what they're going through.
Yeah. Well, moving on from covering Sandy, and by the way, to all those people on the East Coast, we do want to wish you well and hope a speedy recovery too. Moving on, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about FINRA stepping it up to arbitrate for investment advisors and their disputes. I think when we all saw this coming through the newswire, we had the same immediate reaction, which was...
I had told you this before, but my initial reaction is, oh, FINRA is working its way to be the self-regulatory organization for investment advisors. I did my research the best that I could off the FINRA website. Who knows really where we're going to go a year from now or future years. But basically what they said was they had received multiple inquiries from lawyers to actually use the FINRA Arbitration and Mediation Forum to resolve their disputes for them. It's an interesting notion that they received them from the lawyers who actually represent them. But what I think is more interesting is, even though that the investment advisor may use the FINRA arbitration, is the fact that they don't have a lot of the same rights to enforce as they do with the broker-dealer world. So for example, they cannot enforce an award against a non-member of the FINRA broker-dealer. I don't know how that will all play out once they get some in there, but it should be interesting to see that play out. Hopefully more investors and investment advisors would be able to go down that route.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping for that. Another interesting thing that I saw when I was reading this article is, you know, when reading it through and you're thinking of it through the eyes of an investment advisor, why would you even consider going through FINRA? You know, most contracts have a clause in there basically for how you're going to handle arbitration anyways. And then when we looked a little bit closer at some of the fees associated with going through FINRA, I think some of the interesting things we saw is that FINRA's rates are really reasonable. FINRA charges $400 for each arbitrator for an 8-hour hearing, whereas most lawyers will charge between $100 and $200 for every hour. And that's looking at it conservatively. So like you've been saying, you know, it's something definitely to consider when in the event that you have to go through arbitration or mediation.
And hopefully investors know what their options are when they do sign those contracts with investment advisors. And if not, I'm sure some of them are reading them as disputes do come up. And I think what any regulatory organization is trying to do is really just help the investor, the consumer out in regards to disputes or problems between relationships, whether it's a broker-dealer or an investment advisor.
Yeah, I thought another interesting thing that was in the article too is it said that FINRA does not plan to recruit specialized arbitrators to hear cases, but they're going to rely on their current roster, which is 6,400 arbitrators, which I thought was, relative to the size of FINRA, was actually a really good pool. So it makes sense that they have these extra resources on hand. You may as well use them.
Exactly. We use the resource there, and they've offered it up.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you cover it for this week. I want to thank you, Jenny, for stopping by again and talking about FINRA, covering the flood, and then talking about this new arbitration process. Really appreciate it.
I love coming here, so I hope to see you in future.
Great. Thank you again for joining us this week, and we look forward to talking with you again next week.